His teachers called DCF 20 times, and he spent 20 years locked in a room anyway. Now, the state is being sued. So I have been following this story since it first broke. You might recognize this woman. She's pretty memorable. And this new development made my stomach drop. So let me give you the full story from the beginning, because this is one of the most heartbreaking things that I've ever covered. On the evening of February 17th of last year, 2025, firefighters responded to a burning home on Blake Street in Waterbury, Connecticut. Two people were inside. The homeowner, Kimberly Sullivan, who's pictured here, she's 56 years old. She was evacuated safely, and her 32-year-old stepson was still inside and had to be helped out. He was suffering from smoke inhalation, but while EMS was treating him, he told them the truth. He set the fire on purpose. He used a lighter, hand sanitizer, and paper, and he said the words that stopped everyone in their tracks, saying, quote, "I wanted my freedom." What he told police next is almost impossible to comprehend. The man, who has chosen to be publicly identified only as S, to protect his privacy, told investigators that he had been held captive in that home by his stepmother since he was approximately 11 years old. He described life in this 8 by 9 foot room with no heat, no air conditioning, behind a door that Kimberly Sullivan kept locked at all times. He said he was given 2 sandwiches and some water per day while he was confined to his room. He was never allowed to have friends. He told police that Kimberly had warned him that under the pain of death, no one was to see me. His first memory of abuse was when he was about 3 years old. The last time he went trick-or-treating was when he was 12 years old, and he dressed up as a firefighter. When firefighters pulled him out of that burning house, he stood 5'9" and weighed 68 pounds. 32 years old. Medical personnel said that he was near starvation and had wasting syndrome, which is a condition of severe weight loss and muscle deterioration. He had received no medical or dental care for decades. The Waterbury police chief said, quote, 30 years in law enforcement, this is the worst treatment of humanity that I've ever witnessed, end quote. S told police that Kimberly Sullivan instructed him to tell caseworkers that everything was fine when anyone came to the house. Once he was fully removed from school in 4th grade, his room became his entire world. He was given 3 or 4 books per year and a dictionary. Investigators wrote that he ultimately educated himself, reading each book and looking up every word he did not know. Now, here is where the system failed him. When S was a child and still in school, his teachers noticed something was very wrong. Former school principal Tom Pannone, who became principal of Barnard Elementary School in 2001, described calling the Department of Children and Family Services alongside his teachers over and over. He said, quote, I can remember almost every teacher from kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd being in my office with me calling DCF together. And it wasn't just once a year, it was numerous times per year, he said. Teachers brought food in for S because he was constantly stealing food and eating out of the trash cans. He was constantly described as being hungry, extremely small and thin. The principal said, quote, we reported it and not a damn thing was done. That's the tragedy of this whole thing. DCF later confirmed that it had received 6 formal reports about S between 1996 and 2005 and did not remove him from the home. They said that under Connecticut law at the time, they could only interview a child without parental consent in cases of alleged abuse, not neglect, which is how the reports were classified. What the fuck is the difference? When DCF visited, S had been coached to say that everything was fine, so S was eventually pulled from school entirely after the school contacted DCF about his behavior. Shortly after that report, his weekday routine became, according to investigators, brutally consistent for the rest of his life. And here is the new development that brought this story back into the news. The court-appointed conservator for S has now filed a claim against the state of Connecticut, alleging that DCF failed to protect him despite receiving at least 20 calls from school officials. The claim argues that if DCF had properly investigated those reports, S would have been freed and allowed to live a normal life outside of captivity without torture or abuse. end quote. The claim must first be approved by the Connecticut Claims Commissioner before a lawsuit in Superior Court can proceed. But as for Kimberly Sullivan, she has pleaded not guilty to 2 counts: first-degree kidnapping, assault, intentional cruelty to persons, and unlawful restraint. She remains free on $300,000 bond while she awaits her trial. Her attorney has maintained that there is no evidence of locks or restraints and that his client is innocent. And he thankfully is alive. He is slowly recovering. He is building a new life. And in a public statement he released, he said, quote, "Much has already been said that tells part of the story of the abuse I endured. Someday, perhaps my whole story will be told," end quote.